Racist Karen steals and hides my daughter's clothes. I should have known on our wedding day that my husband was always going to choose his Karen of a mother over me. But for the sake of our love, I endured. I should have known when his mother kept making rude remarks about my daughter's heritage that there would be more problems to come. But for the sake of not splitting custody, I endured. Now my mother-in-law is hiding my daughter's clothes, and he's still taking her side. Finally, I'm not sure I want to endure anymore. My husband and I have some issues between us, mainly concerning his racist mother, who he refuses to accept as a racist because she hasn't said any slurs to me. I'm black, and his family is Hispanic. His mother makes negative comments about my hair and my cultural clothing, and she gets upset when I dress our daughter up in clothes from my country. My husband refuses to accept this. His mother is also just a nasty old witch, and she criticizes me about anything. She used to talk trash about me in Spanish, so much that I actually started taking classes so I could understand what was being said about me because my husband refused to translate. His entire family is freaking racist, and I hate them and him so much. The only reason I don't regret meeting him is because I now have our daughter. She's the only good thing he's given me. Yesterday we got into an argument. My mother-in-law misplaced a cultural outfit I had sewn for my daughter. She put it in the laundry and it disappeared. Fat chance. My husband said I was overreacting, and my daughter could wear anything for her photos. But I had specially sewn that outfit for her. His dear mother couldn't have lost the outfit on purpose, and I was a bully for accusing an old woman of doing so. I had enough, and I just went silent and left the room. Later, when I was in the kitchen making dinner for our daughter and myself, he came in and watched me for a bit, and then he said he hated that we fought so much. I've spent countless days and nights crying because of him and his nonsense. So I turned around and said the meanest thing I could to him. I said the only reasons I was still with him were because he was good in bed and because I didn't want to split custody with him. He got offended and started shouting that he couldn't believe me. So I threw my wedding ring at him. I went upstairs where my daughter was napping, picked her up, and stormed out of the house and went to my brother's. I went back an hour later to grab a few things and ignored him the whole time. I know this seems like an overreaction, but I've tolerated 5 years of abuse from this man and his awful family. He made me cry on my wedding day because his mother didn't like the dress I wore, which was my late grandmother's dress. I just don't know what to do now. I still love him, but I can't continue on with him like this. I don't want my little girl growing up with a family that hates her race. First of all, this original poster needs to understand that there's a difference between an overreaction and an explosion. This fight has been a long time coming, but OP's been bottling up her hatred. The fact that her anger finally blew up isn't necessarily an overreaction in the strictest sense, because she wasn't just reacting to what happened this one time. She was reacting to 5 years of emotion all at once. Naturally, that's going to come across a little strongly. I understand why some parents are fearful of breaking their home apart, but staying together for the kids rarely works. There's no way this daughter is oblivious to the fact that her parents are unhappy together. Even if she isn't fully aware of why things are bad or what's happening behind the scenes, she can likely tell that something's off. If staying with this man is making OP miserable, and if his mother is now stealing from her own granddaughter, then it might be well past time to cut the cord. What do you think? Is there any merit in staying together for the kids? What would you do in OP's situation? Let us know in the comments. A stupid baby turned my big day into a red wedding. My wedding was 3 years ago, pre-COVID, and I still cannot get over this. There were supposed to be 3 kids there, my niece and 2 nephews, who were in the wedding. No other kids were invited. It was very clear. Some people couldn't find childcare for their kids so that they could attend. So my sister-in-law had a court wedding because she's the second wife and they have 4 kids. My in-laws gave us a hefty donation towards our wedding as a gift, same as all their other kids. But my sister-in-law and brother-in-law used their money for other stuff, as they have 4 kids. My wedding was a large, fancy affair. My infant nephew was born less than 2 months before my wedding and spent a couple of weeks in the newborn intensive care unit. So, long story short, my sister and mother-in-law plotted behind my back and brought the baby to my wedding. My sister-in-law said that if the baby didn't come, their whole family, including their other 3 kids who were in the wedding, wouldn't come. So I had to share my special day with an effing baby as the center of attention, wearing bright red to stand out more at my purple-themed wedding. It was in all my pictures. And then they kept the baby there until 4 a.m. at the after party, just strapped on my sister's chest, passed out. It literally ruined the best day of my life. And to be clear, I paid a lot of money towards my wedding, just for it to be ruined like this. To this day, they haven't apologized or acknowledged that they just brought a baby to my wedding. Also, it wasn't about childcare either. My sister-in-law works in a daycare and had gotten babysitters the 2 weekends before to go out and party. It was about stealing my shine on my one special day. This got really confusing very fast. I'm not following why it matters that the sister-in-law had a court wedding. I also guess I'm a bit confused on how wedding themes work. I thought the color was primarily for the groomsmen and bridal party. I didn't think guests were required to wear the same colors. Imagine not being able to go to a wedding because you can't afford to buy a new purple dress if you don't happen to look good in that color. But I must have had this wrong, because there are commenters saying that when they get married, they're going to hire bouncers to keep out all babies and anyone wearing the wrong color. Putting aside the amazing visual of some buff Patrick Swayze lookalike chunking a baby through the doorway of a church, this seems extreme. I'd actually wager not one person at that wedding was paying half as much attention to the baby as OP. Even the mother wasn't paying attention to the baby. She just strapped it to her chest and started knocking back shots. But what really gets me is the idea that any mother whose kid was in the ICU just 2 months ago would bring that baby out for drinks until 4 a.m., or that she'd be hiring babysitters to go out and party every week. If so, that's an extreme case of postpartum depression, to the point you should worry more about getting this woman help than about what a terrible thunder thief she is. It's also incredible that this unconscious baby managed to photobomb every single wedding picture. This might actually be the most sinister baby in all fiction. And yes, I do mean fiction. No sane woman holds a resentment against a baby for 3 years. I'm not saying this kind of thing couldn't happen at all, but if it did, then it makes a pretty strong case for family therapy, because everyone here seems more than a little unhinged. If you made it this far in the video, consider liking and subscribing for more videos coming. Diabetic Karen won't stop pressuring my daughter to eat her brownies. My daughter recently came back from college, and my sister joined us all for dinner. We all went to the Cheesecake Factory, and everyone thoroughly enjoyed themselves. We all got full regular entrees with no salad, and we all enjoyed the bread, and we even got dessert too. Just to paint the picture, it was a thorough meal. When we get home, my sister goes into the fridge and pulls out a rack of brownies that she baked, and then gets this ice cream too. My wife and I were like, "Hey Rachel, thank you for the brownies, but we're good." My daughter is also like, "Hey, I'll have some tomorrow, Aunt Rachel, but I'm stuffed for today." Rachel is then like, "Okay," and she gets a big bowl for herself and some ice cream. She then keeps asking my daughter to have a spoonful. My daughter is like, "No, really, I'm good." Then Rachel is like, "Oh, did your parents say you can't have any?" She's like, "Hey, Aunt Rachel, no, I just don't want to eat so late. Plus, I'm full." It was getting weird. I could tell my daughter was uncomfortable. I was like, "Rachel, thank you so much for the brownies, but we don't like to eat so late." This is when it got weirder. Like, I'm guessing Rachel took it as all of us ganging up on her. Like, I could see on her forehead that it was getting sweaty. And she's like, "It's toxic you taught your teenage daughter diet culture, just so she could look good for men and fit into white beauty standards." I got really annoyed by this, and I was like, "Rachel, we encouraged our daughter to lose weight so she would be healthy. We have a family history of diabetes, and there's a reason why you have diabetes and I don't, and why my daughter won't either." And after all this, it just got really bad. She starts crying like crazy and says she was just standing up for young women. She ends up leaving shortly after. My wife tells me I was being too harsh. My daughter says that she's sad that Aunt Rachel was crying because she knows Rachel wants the best. I feel like it's in a really weird place. My sister doesn't have a family of her own, and she really wants someone whom she can mentor like a child too. And we have had tons of aunt-niece days, but I'm really questioning her judgment these days. She does work in education policy and helped my daughter out a ton when it came to colleges. But for me, I feel like Rachel wants my daughter to be like her and, in a way, to be fat too. Am I the jerk for telling off my sister after she tried to undo my daughter's weight loss? If you're looking for a fast and easy drinking game, rewatch this part of the video and take a drink every time OP says like, or every time someone refers to Aunt Rachel by name in the dialogue. You could actually get by with just one of these rules. Or you could play the general Reddit drinking game and just take a drink every time a human behaves in a way that humans don't typically behave. If you're not following that last one, ask yourself where these brownies came from. Based on context, the final act of this pedestrian soap opera seems to take place in OP's house, so there's no way Aunt Rachel snuck these brownies into the fridge without the family knowing. If that's the case, how did this argument even happen? When they were getting dessert at Cheesecake Factory, wouldn't at least one person bring up the fact they already had dessert at home? Especially since it seems they were going back to the house to hang out afterwards, it seems like there'd be a family discussion about whether to order dessert or just wait. It's also a little strange that this supposedly weight-conscious family all filled up on bread, while not one of them ordered a side salad. The idea that this family cares about watching their weight is the entirety of the sword OP decided to fall on at the end. Yet they all forgot about carbs. It's just a little questionable. But Reddit loves stories where fat people try to force their fatness on others, so the comments ate this up like a second helping of homemade brownies. Great, now I'm hungry. My brother spends too much money, so I threw away everything he owns. My brother Alex is an extravagant spender. He will usually blow hundreds of dollars a month on non-necessities, like clothes, video games, eating out, and online subscriptions. I'm currently renting a house with Alex, along with two of his friends. I've told Alex multiple times that he shouldn't be wasting his money, and that if he's unable to pay his share of the rent or his share of other things, such as groceries or utilities, then we won't be happy with him and we may kick him to the curb if that becomes a regular occurrence. Alex always tells me he gets it, but he clearly never listens to me. His friends keep telling me that they get where I'm coming from, but that Alex is an adult and that I should leave him alone. This past Thursday was Alex's girlfriend's birthday, so he spent the evening at the mall with her, along with his friends and their significant others. I had some work that I needed to get done, so I stayed at home. Anyways, when they came back, I saw that Alex spent way too much money. While they were out, he bought a new Xbox with new controllers, and he also bought some new clothes from expensive retailers like American Eagle and Hollister. Not only that, but he also spent a lot of money on his girlfriend to treat her for his birthday, and also on Starbucks for lunch for the two of them. He could have likely blown over $1,000 in one day. I was about to lose my mind when I heard this, but I managed to hold back. I decided that Alex really didn't need all this stuff, and that I needed to teach him a lesson. So the next morning, after Alex left for work, I donated all of the new clothes he bought and returned his Xbox and controllers, and I decided to keep the money to pay rent. When Alex came home that day, he asked if I saw his new stuff at all and that he can't find it. After he asked that, I picked up his Starbucks that he bought on the way home and dumped it in the sink, and I told him that I got rid of it all to teach him a lesson. I told him that he spends way too much money on things he doesn't need, and that he needed to feel the immediate effects of throwing money down the drain. I also told him that the new stuff being gone doesn't really change anything, as he's in the same spot he was in just a couple of days ago. Alex then threw a tantrum like a little kid, calling me a thief and saying that I stole hundreds of dollars worth of his stuff. He also told me that if I didn't return that stuff back to him or give him the money within a month, then he would press charges against me and have me evicted. I told him that I'm not going to do that because I'll be using that money towards things that we actually need. Shortly afterwards, I saw he ranted about that to Instagram, and then my DMs blew up from enraged family, friends, and our roommates, saying that I'd be lucky if Alex doesn't take legal action against me. I feel like maybe I went a little overboard here, but I really feel like I needed to teach Alex a lesson. Edit. Alex has not missed any rent payments so far. Okay, so that edit makes it pretty obvious this is rage bait. I was already leaning that direction when OP poured Alex's drink down the drain so he'd have something to do with his hands while he delivered his villain monologue. But let's play along. First of all, OP's dumb edit makes it ridiculous to threaten Alex in the event of him repeatedly missing rent, since he hasn't even missed it once. Second, Alex is not in the same spot he was in a few days ago. He's been put out $1,000. Remember, he's not getting back the money from what was returned, and he's definitely not getting back the money from what was donated. Third, I can't even continue making points without going back to how unbelievable this story is. I mean, the roommates blew up OP's Instagram? Why? They live with him. They can just tell him face to face what a jerk he is. It also feels like the detail about OP being the only one to stay home when he was out is supposed to show how standoffish he is with his roommates, but it seems self-defeating to me. If you really don't want Alex spending money, maybe don't turn him loose in the mall alone. Finally, if Alex isn't missing rent, then he's clearly making enough for his spending not to be an issue. The biggest problem with Alex is just that he bought his girlfriend's birthday lunch at Starbucks. Happy birthday, Becky. Here's your pesto and provolone panini. That's just lame. He could have at least bought her dessert at Cheesecake Factory and then taken her home for some homemade brownies. Hey, I just heard a story about a woman who's looking for a girl to dote on. I think I can solve everyone's problems here. Please leave your stories in the comments. I'd love to make a video of them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.